The basics of angles and framing, balancing your composition. First, let's talk about the rule of thirds. It's a well-known composition guideline. The rule of thirds is important because it really draws emphasis onto your subject. Generally, you want your subject to be looking into the space that is open. This creates positive space, otherwise it would be negative space. Let's talk about some different shot types, the basic ones that you're going to see in most videos. Generally, you're going to see a wide shot or an establishing shot. A wide shot is a great introductory shot, a great way to introduce your subject. A mid shot or a profile shot, you're going to use your mid shots mostly for your talking head pieces. When you're talking to the camera after you've introduced your subject, you're going to keep it mostly on a mid shot. And a tight or a close-up. So the tight shot, the close-up, or the extreme close-up is a good way to show like an intense moment, or maybe like for comedic effect or even drama. It really depends on the tone of your video. When your camera is pointing down at your subject, this can make your subject seem small or inferior. On the flip side, when your camera is pointing up at your subject, it makes the audience feel smaller, and your subject is more imposing and powerful. Now let's talk about some basic conversational angles. This is your over-the-shoulder shot. When shooting conversations between two people or more, the over-the-shoulder shot is a great way to make an interesting composition while people are just talking. Now let's talk about the 180-degree rule. The 180-degree rule is a cinematography guideline. Basically, two characters in the scene should maintain the same right to left relationship. So if you cross this invisible line when you're switching up your angle, it can make it seem like the subjects are kind of like facing the same side when they're talking to each other, and this can be very jarring for the audience. This rule is an important way to maintain continuity and consistency throughout your shots. And now we're cutting back and forth between correct use of the 180-degree rule, and it looks a lot better. This is a two-shot. Even if a little less dynamic, it's a good, easy way to show your subjects. Here's a well-balanced shot of Armando out in the woods using the rule of thirds. So this shot is showing a pretty textbook example of leading lines. Leading lines are elements within your frame, very often actual lines that draw the viewer's eye right into your subject. So here's a more advanced shot that's using everything we talked about before. We have leading lines, we have elements in the frame that are balancing the composition, we're using that rule of thirds, and also we're using some contrast to add depth, that light to dark ratio. And see, we're maintaining good composition all the way through until the end.